Hey gang, welcome to another episode of Walk the Track with Ad, Jesus and, yet again, go on Boaz, joining us again for Walk the Track, where we go for a walk and you can join us and we talk about great things from Scripture, how beautiful our Jesus is. So, if you'd like to join us, let's go. Let's go. You can jump on a treadmill or a bike or countless things out there, isn't it? You can sit down and have a coffee if you like. What are you doing, Boaz? You can sit in a carrier if you'd like. I don't know who would carry me, but there we go. So it's going to be about 20 minutes. It's always nice to have some company when you do exercise, I find. Especially walking or running or something like that. It goes a bit quicker. Oh, here we go. What's happening down there? The girls are on the trampoline. You right, gang? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to have some hills on our track, as you know. So there'll be times where I'll be going a little bit quicker. So take a few big deep breaths in, because I'm very excited by this episode, but there's also a few things which, there's Andy Nichols as well. The man, the myth, the legend. So what we're going to talk about today is the podcast that we released last week, which is very exciting. What I thought of doing is the week after the podcast gets released is for us to have a chat about it. Because here, when you hear like a sermon or you read something, and it can feel like just half an hour later you've forgotten about it completely. But if you review it with friends and with the Lord and in a journal or something, then it just goes deeper in, doesn't it? And meditation is a whole part of that. Is where you consume it and become it, ultimately. Boaz is talking to the plants. So last week we did our podcast with Josh, my good friend Josh, part 1. And it was, when I listened to it again, I was really praying for all you parents who have children that might not be walking with the Lord at the moment, or you just don't know what they're going through. They're going through a confusing time. And I think of my parents, because I walked away from the Lord for almost 20 years and looked on the outside like I wanted nothing to do with him. Went to some very, it was quite dark places. Anywhere outside of the Lord is dark, isn't it? I didn't get anything properly stupid, but I was not walking with the Lord, So I hope that episode just encouraged you and gave you a bit of an insight into what youngsters go through, the challenges they face, and what Josh brought up was quite a few things. But what I thought about talking about today was the kind of things that we carry, the things that we're talking about, identity. And we touched on in part 1 with Josh, the things that we chase after because we think it will, ultimately give us an identity or let us know what our identity is. Because I believe, the Lord has made us to all live knowing who we are and who He is. And when we don't, there's this constant search, and you might have gone through that. You might be going through that right now, where you're looking in every corner of the universe. Okay, I'm going to go uphill now, guys, for about 4 minutes. So if you'd like to join me, this is going to be a bit harder. We're going to walk a bit faster. Let's go. So Josh and I were talking about, in our teen years, cars, starting businesses to make money, to impress people, and at that age, our social circle was so important. So important. The thoughts of our friends and peers and older colleagues were just so you would almost do anything to get approval. Almost anything from the lads in your sporting club or from the girls you were chasing after. And then later that became the bosses you were trying to get to employ you, or the clients you were getting. And I thought, you know what? The more we journey with the Lord, you realise He's so kind, and He keeps saying there's no need to be afraid, doesn't He? There's no need for fear, shame, or guilt anymore. And the concept Kez and I have talked about a lot recently is the enemy can't create, can he? He cannot make something. He can only twist what's already there. And a big thing that's helped me recently, the Lord showed me, that it's given me a lot of peace, is anything that's come up in me that's not great is oftentimes, it's not evil in and of itself, it's just a twisted truth that the Lord's put in me. For example, if you're looking to, social media to get likes, if you're looking for approval from your friendship group, for example, there's loads of examples, that in itself isn't necessarily wrong, because there's a root there that's good. The Lord has created us to belong, isn't He? So whenever you've noticed a behaviour or a pattern in your life, it might be, because we talk about health and exercise, it might be your eating, it might be your exercise regime. If you're constantly battling with food in an unhealthy way, it's just relax, because food is meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to be enjoyed. It's just, we can take it to Him. There's about 30 seconds left of this hill. We can take it to Him, and He can show us the original good, true root. And there was a couple of stories which came to mind, and I've read over recently. The first one is with Abraham, and the second one's with Jesus. Abraham and his son Isaac. It's just such a bonkers story. And the reason I mention it is because in that culture, your firstborn son was everything. The way they talk about their firstborn sons, I mean, some of you scholars would know more about it than I would, but it represents your legacy. He's your heir, he carries on your name. There's so much to the firstborn son, isn't it? And of course we think of Jesus, God's firstborn son, only son. Oh. Anyway, so when we're talking about Abraham and Isaac, what fascinated me was, it's the first time, when things are mentioned first in the Bible, it's called the law of first mention. And what scholars tell me is the first time something is mentioned in the Bible, you can take it as being quite significant. It means something. It almost sets the standard for the meaning of that concept. And I couldn't believe this, but in the story of Abraham and his son Isaac, when he's asked to offer him up as a sacrifice, that's the first time that love is mentioned in the Bible. Isn't that amazing? Love is, everything is about love, isn't it? God is love. And that's the first time it's mentioned. And it's in the context of a father's love for a son, which is just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. And the story came up to me today after thinking about Josh's podcast and things that we hold on to so dearly. The Lord knew that Abraham's prized possession was Isaac, didn't He? And He asked him to offer him up. And you know the story. We're getting to the end of the track now. Sorry, we stopped the hill about 2 minutes ago. So if you're still walking fast, well done. Bravo. Whew. Right, I've reached the end. We can hear I don't know if you can hear the sheep in the distance. Obviously dinner time. It's this concept that at first you think it's absolutely horrid that, the Lord would ask you to kill your firstborn son, I mean, there's a lot of cultural things going on there, of course. It was a lot more common at the time, but the Lord was never going to let him do it, was he? And it's this principle that the Lord loves us. He loves you so much that he wants nothing to come in the way of his love for you. And because he knows, he's so confident in his love that his love is unfailing, his love is relentless, and it will never stop. It'll never force itself on you, but it'll never stop. And it'll always provide a way out. And he wants nothing. He's a jealous God. He wants nothing above his love in your life, in my life. And we see that from Abraham. When the Lord had... I was mourning the other day about, some promises in my life that had taken a little while to come to pass. It's all on my end, not on the Lord's. And it's been, a few years in this, a few months in this. And then you read the story of Abraham, and he didn't have a son till he was like 100. Bit of time to wait. I'm going to change arms because my arm is getting tired. And I haven't yielded to my sister's suggestion of getting a selfie stick. I just can't do it. I can't get a selfie stick. Anyway. Nothing against them. Not me. So in those years of waiting, the Lord had transformed Abraham's heart to know that he can trust the Lord and give him everything. And of course, the famous line is, the Lord himself will provide a sacrifice. When Isaac asked Abraham, what's going on? Where's the sacrifice? And the Hebrew there can mean the Lord himself will be a sacrifice. So this beautiful picture of the Lord knows that in everything that's in your life that it is the big red button. It could be your kids, it could be your weight, it could be your appearance to others, it could be your job, it could be anything. The Lord knows it. The Lord knows it. And he knows it's not bringing you life. So he comes in and he asks you to hand it to him, whilst at the very same time saying, let me come in. Let me come in and sacrifice myself so that you can trust me more. And there's no separation between us. And you think about Jesus. I mean, they say he was tempted in every area. I don't quite understand that. I mean, I don't know how he was tempted with, buying the latest car, but there was, the principles of temptation are the same, aren't they? It's like, do you want this for fulfillment outside of God or with God, And he never sinned. Did he, Boaz? He never sinned. But in the wilderness, he was tempted. What I found interesting was he was tempted with the things that he was actually he was here for on earth. He came to save the world and to rule as king, as a servant. So the enemy tempted him with all the kingdoms of the world. Have you ever thought about that? So, they were genuine temptations because it was the reason he was here. So they were genuine temptations. But he had this relationship. He had this relationship with the Lord, and I wanted to relate this. I hope this doesn't sound too, trying to make it a round peg fit in a square hole, so to speak, linking it to body fat and all those, fancy health terms. But I do think there's a link here, and a way that there's a breakthrough for you in your health, as there is for me. Because I'm journeying on with you guys so much. when there's an idol in our life, when there's something that we're going after because we think it's going to make us into something that we're not at the moment, we carry it as a burden. And I'm just going to put a suggestion to you. Recently, the things that I believe are gifts from the Lord and desires from the Lord. And you might notice this in your life. The greatest temptations in your life, these big buttons, these idols, might actually not always be in your weak points. They might actually be in your strong points. Like for me, just to be really honest with you, I have what I believe a God-given dream to be an example with health and fitness, with Christ at the centre. I also have a huge passion for family life and how husbands and fathers can shine in the family. And those are two key areas where I have been tempted to do things in my own strength. And I fall into that often, I must admit, where I do things in my own strength. An example would be I pressure myself into being the superest, fittest guy there is. I'm walking uphill now. Last 10 minutes, guys, I think. So I put pressure on myself to lose weight by tomorrow. With family, I put pressure on myself in my own strength to always be there for the kids 24/7, to always be there for Kez, to be a super husband for her, whilst having to work and do all these things. And you know what? It makes me weary. Different from tired. It makes me weary, and I can tell when I'm doing it. And I asked the Lord what I need to know about this. And a word came that someone told me about 25 years ago. And he wasn't a Christian. He was a fellow cricketer. And he said, Coatsy, you're carrying too much. What he meant by that was too much body fat. I was too fat at the time. I was carrying too much weight. And it came to mind the other day. I wonder if there's a link between these things I'm carrying, in the spirit, in these burdens that I'm doing things in my own strength. And for me at the moment, I'd admit I'm carrying more body fat than I'd like. I wonder if there's a link, I'm sure as we walk more in resting in the Lord, I'm sure our health improves. So my encouragement for you today, after listening to that podcast with Josh and thinking about idols and identity, is, feel free to approach the Lord. You might know already what are the things that you're doing in your own strength, and you feel like you're constantly carrying them yourself, and they're making you weary. Because I propose that they're affecting your health. And you can just go to the Lord and say, I've got a minute left of uphill here, and say, Lord, I really feel like I'm burdened by something. You might know what it is. If you don't, ask him, Lord, what am I carrying? What am I doing in my own strength? And he'll tell you in his grace. And then, here are a couple of fantastic questions, suggestions. Hi, girls. I'm on another walk. I know why. I don't know. So for me, it was, I'm doing, trying to be super fit in my own strength. What do I need to know about that, Lord? It's a great question. Lord, what do I need to know about this? And he said, you're trying to be the source for people's transformation, not me, not pointing them to me. And then I said, okay, Lord, what do you want to replace that lie with? And he just simply said, my life verse, you are my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. And for me, that's a very personal thing. But that replaced all that. Oh, there we are. Uphill done. That's my go-to the weariness keeps coming back. Now and again, the temptations are there. Whew. But I go back to that and say, thank you, Lord. Even though I chose to do this in my own strength today, I chose to really try and diet and extreme exercise. I thank you, Lord, that I'm not people's source, you are. And I am your beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. And just be with him. So I encourage you to have some time with the Father and say, Lord, what are these burdens that I'm carrying that are making me weary? Because what does he say about burdens that make us weary? Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke. I am the fitness expert for these people, not you. Don't worry about it. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble of heart. You might be a little bit daunted about going to God about these things, about calling him Father even. He is gentle and humble and lowly of heart. He's so kind. He's so patient. I mess up all the time. And he just says, come to me, Ad. Come to me. Come to me. So I encourage you, go to him. Go to him. Ask him what burdens you're carrying. Write them down in a journal. Talk about them with your friends. And then say, Lord, what do I need to know about these things? What do you want to show me about these things? And then hand them over to him. And ask him, Lord, what truths about yourself do you want to replace these lies with? Right, I think the girls wanted me on the trampoline. So bless you guys. I love you all so much. I'm humbled to do these walks with you. Please put a lot of that stuff you're going to do is very personal, so don't feel you have to share it publicly. But if there's anything you want to put in the comments, watch the podcast as well if you haven't already. I'll put the link in the notes somewhere. And bless you. Have a great day.